Hey groupers, Pastor Marshall here. I hope that you're ready to dig in to this next passage in the book of Acts as we continue through chapter 4 and finish chapter 4. To get things started, just a simple question. Do you remember Y2K? What was your favorite story about Y2K? In the town Claudia and I lived, the interstate went right by our house. There was a billboard up on the interstate with a giant picture of duct tape, and the caption said, "Are you Y2K ready?" That was my favorite Y2K moment. What about you? And then I also want you to talk about this book. How many of you have even heard of this book that I mentioned in my message, The Prayer of Jabez? And then second, after you answer that question, did any of you read the book? Talk about that. And then finally, third, very simple, if you be transparent, did any of you pray this prayer? You read the book, and this was something that you did for a while. Well, first, where did Peter and John go as soon as they were released? Remember last week, they'd been arrested. The Sanhedrin has let them go after warning them not to speak or teach in the name of Jesus. Where did they go? And then, what is the immediate response? What happens immediately after they arrive? What is the action? Next, I'd like to discuss this prayer. I did this past weekend talk about the sections of this prayer, but I would like for you, without me tipping my hat again, to talk about how you would divide up this prayer. You might have my notes, you might have sermon notes with you on Sunday. If so, well, then you've got a little bit of help. But as a group, I'd like you to try to decide, what are the elements of this prayer? What are the themes of this prayer? And is there anything that you think is missing in this prayer that you would have prayed if you had been in these apostles' shoes? And what about this prayer surprises you? I just want you to talk about this prayer. And then I want you to turn back in your New Testament to Matthew, Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 6, starting in verse 9. 9 through 13 is where we record the model prayer or the Lord's Prayer. And I'd like you to lay these two next to each other and just compare them. What is similar? What is different? Is there something missing from the church's prayer? Jesus gave us a model prayer. Is there something missing from the church's prayer that Jesus said that we should pray about? Well, we talked in group a few weeks ago about the sovereignty of God and man's schemes. So I don't want to dig into that this week. It's certainly in this passage. And in your group, if you have extra time, you might want to spend some time talking about that. But it's not on my list, not on my agenda. Next on my agenda, though, it says they prayed for boldness. I'd like you to talk about that. When does boldness become offensive? Because there are plenty of people in the church that claim that they are bold, but most of the time they're not our best campaigners. They're not the best testimony from the church. When does boldness become offensive? When does it become annoying? And then, let's not just be negative, let's be positive. What does boldness look like that is attractive? What does a Christian who is bold look like and they're attractive? They're not somebody that people run away from. Well, next, it says that they specifically prayed that God will perform miracles. What kinds of miracles do you think that they are praying for? And more specifically, what purpose do you sense that they're praying that these miracles will have? And then, have you ever prayed that God would perform miracles for a purpose other than the person that needs the miracles? Have you ever prayed that God would perform a miracle for a purpose other than the person that needs the miracle? What do you think about our church praying that God would perform miracles? Well, it says that the place where they were staying was shaken. This place is on solid ground. Thankful for that. None of us really ever want it to be shaken because we live in Southern California. It says that it was shaken. Have you ever experienced what you believe to be a theophany, which means that there was some physical presence of God that you and multiple people felt, not just a personal experience, but that the crowd, the room, the group walked away saying, God was here because this happened. Maybe you would tell that story. Finally, we get another glimpse of the heart of the first church for each other. In this last section where they were caring for each other, selling their goods, giving to those that were in need. What stands out to you in this last section of the text that you believe that we as a church today should be following? And then, is there anything here that you think that we need to dismiss? This is something that was a first century supernatural special event, and it's not for the church today. What do we model in this? And is there anything that we don't model? Prayer. In the olden days, people used to come up to the front bench, to the front of the church, and they would kneel and they would pray. Here we are in this passage, and once again, the church is praying. I really like that. It's just one of my favorite things, that when this persecution came, the first response of the church was prayer. What do you like? What is your favorite thing in this passage? And then, what do you not like? It was really hard. This passage is just rich of great, exciting things, but did mention Herod and Pilate, so I'll take the easy road and say that I don't like them. But application. I challenged you this week to look at this prayer as a model, as a form of the way that we should pray. I'm not tipping my hat as to what that is. I want you as a group to talk about it, but I did challenge you to spend 5 minutes every week on your own praying this kind of prayer, praying the themes in this prayer. So just a reminder of what we committed to this last weekend, that we would be a people that prays like the first church prayed. Well, I hope that you have a wonderful group, and I look forward to seeing you next weekend as we continue our journey through the book of Acts. God bless.